I mean, because the perception, especially, I think if you've read Peter Thompson's book, The Wars of Afghanistan, one of the issues that's frequently, I have a lot of disagreements with the book, but one of the issues that's frequently mentioned are the dichotomies between Pakistan's civilian and military leadership. So, given that PTI is seen as being closer relatively to the military than other parties, and the fact that General Bajwa is visiting Kabul, what does this tell us about sort of Pakistan's internal dynamic with regard to its policy in Afghanistan? Are civilian and military both 100% on board?
Unfortunately, this is not just in the case of Afghanistan, but many of our foreign policy issues. There has been a major tussle, and you're all aware of it, between the military and the civilian leadership. And it did lead to the removal of Nawaz Sharif. It's in front of you. But yes, you've said it rightly. Yeah. PTI, yes, they are considered as, hand in glove, and they're very much on the same, wavelength when it comes to our policies towards Afghanistan as well. Apart from the fact that when, just on a lighter side, when Imran Khan did, say that he was going to give citizenship to all the Afghan refugees in Pakistan, that didn't go too well with the military. But apart from that, yes, they're on the same wavelength. And I think, again, believe me, if the civilian leadership wanted closer ties with Afghanistan, if the military was not on board, it could not happen, because the military is, more stronger or powerful when it comes to our policies internally as well as externally. But again, this is why it is difficult, and I understand the history of mistrust is there. And even when I speak to my Afghan, counterparts or friends, they view the military with immense suspicion. And I do understand that, and it's difficult to convince them. But I am telling you that there is a visible change in the perceptions that the military has vis-a-vis Afghanistan. And I think a lot of this has to do also with China's role in Afghanistan and this whole CPEC that's come into the region. Because at the end of the day, you need to have a stable Afghanistan, not just for politics, but for economics as well. And Pakistan needs our economy to grow. It needs infrastructure. It needs to be connected to Central Asia and, of course, further onwards. So I think it's a whole spectrum of things that has led to this. And also, I think there's a realization, not just within Pakistan, but I think also within other regional countries, particularly Russia, the Central Asians, that, for far too long they have, invested or depended on the Western world to come and bail them out when there's a problem in the region. And I think you've seen this now in the Moscow talks and how, Russia has really reasserted itself, and it has taken regional countries on board, including Pakistan. And a lot of them, these regional countries, I feel they have now a consolidated policy towards Afghanistan, which, by the way, does include the recognition and the role of the Taliban in the future polity of Afghanistan. So it's not just Pakistan who views this. And I think that's also helped, further this policy that we have in our country.
So, I mean, I'm gonna, on that note, so you said, for example, in the article before the peace agreement, saying that the Taliban cannot continue to carry on killing Afghans because it undermines the legitimacy of the claim that they're freeing their land from foreign occupation. But I mean, it's funny because, since the breakdown or the stalling of this peace process, both sides have started to kill each other. But apparently, as of yet, it hasn't really lowered the Taliban's legitimacy, even though it's Afghans that are dying in this. So, because the peace process has stalled, if, God forbid, it completely collapses, and, the spoilers that Shah Mahmoud Qureshi was referring to, right now we're seeing it with regard to the prisoner exchange. If, God forbid, this war, whatever breaks out in Afghanistan, a civil war, how would Pakistan, together with the other countries in the region, respond to this? What is their policy? Because I'm sure there is a contingency plan, because it's a very real possibility.
Well, I hope to God that there is a contingency plan, because we've never had them in the past. But I think we haven't, believe me. So, and I don't think we have one now. But I think regional countries, I don't think the regional countries at least will let this happen. And here again, I think it is very important. You see, it's the Americans. I mentioned, because you're mentioning my article, where, Secretary Pompeo praises the Afghan Taliban and says that they've kept their, part of the bargain. And he's basically talking about the fact that that the Taliban are not killing American soldiers. That's what he means. But what about Afghan civilians? And I think here, or Afghan forces for that matter, and here, that is why it is pivotal, it is paramount that the Americans put pressure on the Taliban, that they have to show a visible reduction in their violence. And I understand the Taliban are doing this because they want to have more influence when it comes to negotiations. But I think this is something that, and this is the mistake that was made when the agreement was signed between the Americans and the Taliban. More pressure should have been put on this side. And I think then the Afghan government should also put pressure on the Americans. That we're not a part of this deal unless until the Taliban reduce their violence.
I mean, to be fair, it could be argued that the Americans should be putting pressure on Kabul to, speed up the peace.
Prisoner release.
To speed up the prisoner release.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, I think, I think with regard to the spoilers that Shah Mahmoud Qureshi was referring to, I think he was referring specifically to Kabul.
And here, I mean, I don't think the Afghans listening here will appreciate what I have to say, but I think one factor that is often overlooked, and I've mentioned this time and again when I write on the peace process, is that, look, external elements can only do so much, and there are external spoilers. There is no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, what is the major issue that has been stalling the peace? Again, I mentioned peace, the agreement or the implementation of the agreement.
The withdrawal agreement.
The withdrawal agreement, if it ever takes place, is that President Ghani, unnecessarily, he created delays in the release of prisoners. And before, when even he was in power, him and, Dr. Abdullah, they would never see eye to eye, and they could never come up with a consolidated list to take part in the intra-Afghan talks. And that is why I feel that there are many people within Ghani's government now and before that not only oppose the Taliban, but let alone do they want to share power with them. And Amrullah Saleh is one major example. And, unfortunately, nothing, positive comes out of that man's mouth. I've had terrible interactions with him. And of all the places, I've met him in India. And it's been off. Yes.
How has that gone?
Well, at the Raisina dialogue, he was there and, I approached him, started speaking to him and pushed. And the first thing, unfortunately, is always that I'm an ISI agent, which is ridiculous because I love the way they say ISI. It's that accent of theirs, which is ridiculous because, if you say anything that they don't like, they automatically stamp you as an ISI agent.
You should have. You should have responded asking him why an ISI agent was in India. But
I know, and that too, the Raisina dialogue, which is by the foreign ministry. But I feel that it's just. But more importantly, and on a serious note, I think for a country that has been going through so much war, factors like national reintegration, social healing, these are so important. And I think they've been so overlooked. And I'm sure you've all read Hila Najibullah's book. It's basically her thesis. It's a repetition continuously as a thesis is. It's her master's thesis. But she focuses on this, and she focuses on her father's so-called, peace initiative, which obviously didn't even kick off. It failed. But social healing and national and social reintegration are so important. Afghanistan is divided on so many fronts, and the fact that the intra-Afghan talks have not been able to take place just shows you that at the end of the day, if the talks do take place, the different political factions and the Afghan Taliban will have to sit together and chalk out their differences. And they were able to do this, by the way, in the Moscow talks, how the different political factions, they agreed on that interim political setup. The only person that didn't agree was Ghani.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess we could say that those political factions I think, you speak to many Afghans and they'll say that those very political factions are the problem because, the guys sitting opposite the Taliban in Moscow, were the guys that were, very much on board with toppling and overthrowing the Taliban with American money, but with American support, sorry. But now that they're estranged from Ashraf Ghani, they want to sort of change sides. So I think political opportunism.
But that's what politics is about, right? At the end of the day, I mean, look at what's happened to Dostum. The fact is that you need, they have to come together. Otherwise, this is going to go on forever and ever. And I think there is the fact that the Taliban have entered into this agreement, there is war fatigue there. And I think they also realize that, this is going to be the 19th year